Now we've seen how we can take our table design and turn that into a physical table in Access by adding the field names and the preferred data type. Now there are further properties to each of these fields to consider. If we take the My Clients Tables database and open up the TBL clients in design mode, if I right click and design view, I can see the field names that I've added and I can see the data types chosen. In the bottom half of the screen are extra field properties that are worth considering. Now some of these we will deal with separately as they are quite large and varied, and the others we'll now have a run through. Every single one of these fields will have slightly different properties dependent on the data type. You can see here the auto number data type has very few properties, but if we choose a short text one, it suddenly has lots more, as does a long text, as does date time, but they're slightly different, as does yes no, and again they're slightly different. One property that all of them have in common though is the caption. The caption, if we click in, we get an explanation over here. The caption is the label that is used for this particular field in datasheet view, so looking at when you're entering data, and in forms and in reports. If you leave the caption blank, then it takes the field name. Now all of our field names have been created as not too cryptic, but certainly they don't have any spaces in, and they all have this client prefix that perhaps isn't necessary. In the caption, I can put what I like, I can put spaces, and that's not going to affect the data field. So for client active, I could just put active. For country, I could put country. So I'm dropping that client prefix. Client zip can become zip. Client town can become town / city. Add to. Let's make it address to, so we're a bit longer, even add a space in. Now what you will see is if we click save and view this, it's the captions that are then used at the top. You see there it says address to, town, city, zip, country, instead of the client prefix. So the field is still called client and whatever name we've gone for, but the column headings and the labels on forms and reports pick up the caption. Now they don't pick them up retrospectively. If you've already created a handful of forms or lots of forms and reports, and you then change the caption, those forms and reports are not updated with the new caption. So you need to put these captions in at a very early stage, as we are here now. The table's been designed, it's been entered into Access, and we're now adding the captions that will make our database more user-friendly to humans. So the caption is the label that is used for the field when seen by a human interface, so in a form, a report, or in datasheet view of a table. Another common field that exists between each of the data types is default value. The default value is the value that will already appear in that field, and if you want to keep the value, you simply tab through it. If you want to change the value, you overtype it. So for example, with client country, if a lot of my clients are going to be in the USA, then I could put a default value in here of USA. That way USA will already appear in the field. If I don't want USA, perhaps they're in Canada, I would overtype the USA value. Notice how Access has placed the USA in speech marks because it's a text string, not a numeric value. Now there isn't a need to add a default value for every single one of your fields, best used where there are common entries. So in this case, country, a lot of my people will be in the same country, so I've put a value in, so it's already there. Required is also a common field property. Now the values here are yes or no, and that's all you can put, yes or no. Is this a required field? Now try not to fall into the trap of making all of your fields required, otherwise people will just put gibberish in to get past that field. If, however, there is a field that really does have a requirement that it has a value in, then change its required to yes from no, because the default is no, and something will have to be entered in that field. It may be the client name, for example. That should be a required field. So I can change the required to a yes by clicking in here, choosing the little drop down arrow and selecting no. Although there is a quicker way. If I double click on the yes, you'll see that it changes to no. If I double click on the no, you'll see that it changes to yes. So that's quite a good way of changing that field, and only that field, to be a required field. So they have to put something in the client name. Whilst I'm here, let's change the caption so it doesn't say client name across the top. Let's say name of company. So that's the required property, set against any of the fields that you feel must have an entry when people are data entering. And then the last of the most common properties is the text align property. That appears at the bottom of the short text and of the number fields and date time fields and even yes no fields. So the text align has a number of choices and you can only choose what's in the list: general, left, center, right, or distribute, which is a little bit like justify. So this controls how the text or the contents, could be numeric, appear in that particular field. Do they appear to the left of the field? Do they appear to the center of the field? Do they appear to the right of the field? Do we leave it as general, in which case text will be left aligned and numbers and dates will be right aligned? Or do we choose distribute to spread the text across the whole field? So you may want to change any of the text align options. You'll find that by default they are all general. So you can see they're general, 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 which means you're allowing access to decide to put text on the left, numbers on the right, but you may wish to override that. Overriding it here then causes that text field to be aligned in whatever direction you choose on all the forms reports that you then create. Now you can override the default option that you set here on any individual form or report when we create that form or report. So it's not a be all and end all of text alignment. It's just the default for this particular field wherever it happens to be used. So it may be that I wish the country to be aligned in the middle instead of on the left, which is its default. Now because I've changed the option here, I get a little piece of lightning. It says, do I want to update the text align everywhere client country is used? So if I'm now changing it to the center, if this field has been used already in a number of forms and reports and is left aligned, what Access will now do is go update all those forms and reports and make them center aligned. So that's quite a good option. I'll say, yes, thank you, let's do that. And it says no objects needed to be updated because actually I don't have any forms or reports as yet, but there could have been. So OK, and I've changed the property text align for the country field. So those are the common ones that appear in every data type and therefore in every field of your tables. Caption, very important for the column heading, the label on forms, a default value if required, setting the field to be required or not, and setting the alignment of the contents of that field when used. You then need to save your changes because you've changed the design of the table. Having done that, you can then close the table and those changes will be saved